King, President of the North Carolina Community College Association of Distance Learning, also known as NC3ADL. I appreciate Don Hazelwood and Remote Learner for providing these free professional development webinars. The NC3ADL board would like to make you aware of our 2015 conference that will be held this coming October at the Raleigh Convention Center. Our conference will feature presentations on best practices and innovative approaches in distance learning and e-learning, as well as some vendor exhibits and opportunities for you to network with the distance learning and e-learning peers across the state. Registration will be opening soon, but in the meantime, we hope you'll mark your calendar and plan to join us. Again, those dates are October 25th through the 27th. If any of you are interested in or have an e-learning concept that you'd like to share at our conference, we'd love to hear about it. Feel free to submit a request for presentation proposal by visiting our website at nc3adl.org. A more specific link there should be on the screen, which is nc3adl.org/2015-conference-RFP. Feel free to submit that your proposal, and we look forward to reviewing those. And I appreciate your time, and I'll now turn it over to Don.
All right. Well, as I said, we are going to be talking about Moodle 2.8 today. I am going to now turn this over. This session is being recorded, so if you have to leave early or you know someone that wanted to attend but hasn't, we will be making this recording available to everyone. So on that note, let me turn this over to Shelley McCallum, our instructional specialist with our Training Services Department. Shelley?
Thank you, Dawn. Thank you, Kimberly. Hi, everyone. As Dawn said, my name is Shelley McCallum, and I am what is known as an instructional specialist here with Remote Learner, which basically means that my entire job is training people how to make the most of their Moodle courses and their Moodle sites. I am a regular webinar host here with Remote Learner, and today I want to share with you an overview of the new features that you're going to be seeing as soon as you finish your upgrade this summer to Moodle 2.9. Now, there are over 200 changes that were made with the release of Moodle 2.9. Now, some of those changes, nobody panic, some of those changes were very minor. They might have been just some updates to wording in certain areas, and there were probably some changes on the back end that most users will never even know happened. They'll just be happy because their sites are going to run more efficiently. So we obviously don't have time to go through 200 changes, so we're going to hit the highlights of what most people are going to notice, and the ones that I believe will probably be the most useful to you as course facilitators. So we're going to start off talking about what changes were made that are going to affect all users, whether you are a teacher, a student in a course, or even a site administrator. The first one that I want to show you is actually the new, what they call user menu. This menu is a drop-down menu. It's going to be located in the upper right-hand corner. You can see that in the screenshot here. This menu can be configured by the site administrator in theme settings. So if you are a site administrator, make a note of that. That's where you can go to customize it. And so the links that you might see on your school's site may be a little different. What I'm showing you now are default links, but those can be customized so that you can give users quick access to their user pages, such as their private files area, their messages area, and their profile and badge pages. And you can actually see this on a live site right over here. It's up at the top. It's where you used to see the logout button, and now that logout button is at the bottom of this drop-down menu. And that is one of the buttons that cannot be removed. The logout button will always be there, so nobody can customize that. But what's in the middle can actually be customized. So if y'all have a link to a site that you think is important to be on there, you might want to talk to your site administrators about adding that to that menu. This is designed, this is one of the first steps that Moodle headquarters has made toward making user navigation easier in Moodle. I think that's probably been something that has been requested for several iterations now. They're trying to move some things out of those blocks, the administration and navigation block, and put them in areas that are just a little bit easier to find, have a little bit quicker access to them. So you'll see a couple of changes like that. One of the other changes that's going to affect all users is that you now can have the ability to email files to upload them to your My Private Files area. So instead of having to log in to the Moodle site to add a file to your private files area, you can email them from something like a mobile device even. Maybe if you had a video file or a picture that you had taken on your cell phone, you actually can email that to your Moodle private files area, and then that file can be taken from the private files area and be turned in as part of an assignment or be uploaded to a course and added to a course as an image or a video file anywhere in your course offerings. So it's an easy way to get things, especially from mobile devices, into the Moodle system so that you can use them in different areas. The next item is part of the movement to really improve the content adding capabilities of a Moodle site. So in Moodle 2.7, headquarters introduced a new text editing toolbar, and it is called ATTO, A-T-T-O, and this is the default text editing toolbar. And what I'm talking about is when you go in to add content anywhere in Moodle and you see all of your controls for adjusting the look of the font, the orientation of the font, for adding hyperlinks, for embedding images and videos, this is your text editor toolbar. So ATTO is the new default. It was introduced in 2.7. It was designed specifically for use with Moodle. And the thing that makes that nice, why that's exciting, is the fact that since it's designed specifically for use with Moodle, as they continue to add features to ATTO, they're going to be Moodle-specific features. So in 2.8, the big one is that you now have an autosave feature. So if your users are using the ATTO toolbar and say they are entering an essay response into a quiz module, when they are typing, Moodle is automatically saving anything that they are typing. So if for some reason their connection gets broken, their internet access drops for whatever reason, or the power goes out. I don't know if any of you have ever had this happen with any of your students, but normally they go into crisis mode. That would not be a problem anymore, because when they log back in and they go back to that page, ATTO will put a message. You'll see it down here in the bottom. It actually shows up, depending on your theme, it typically comes up in kind of a light blue highlighting, and it says there's a draft version that they have automatically restored. So they can pick up wherever they left off. And it doesn't just work in quizzes. This also works in areas, as you can see, this is a label. So if you're a teacher and you're working on building your class and somehow, again, you accidentally hit the power button on your surge protector under your desk or something, and your power goes out, when you come back to that same area, that same text entry area, you would see the draft version restored for you so that you could just pick up where you left off. So nice little feature to help prevent you from losing any of your work. There are also several new features that have to do with forums. I'm not sure how many of you use forums, discussion forums, in your online courses, but there are some new ones of note. Number one, you now have the ability to like posts, kind of in a similar fashion to how users rate posts on Facebook. Instead of just clicking a like button, though, you set this up with what they are now calling a single entry scale option. So if you've ever used the scales to allow users to rate posts in Moodle, you might recall that formerly you had to actually have at least 2 items in a scale. So if you wanted to do this, you would have to have like and dislike. And if people started disliking posts, some folks might get offended and then they just quit participating in the forums. So now you do have the option of creating a single entry scale where the only option is to like something. Users aren't forced to rate it, but they can use that like button if they want to kind of give some virtual applause to whoever posted it. In addition, you're going to have better navigation within your forums because now you're going to have links to the next thread and the previous thread. So if you have a forum that has multiple discussion topics within it, users would be able to go into one topic, and then at the top and bottom of the page they would see little hyperlinks with arrows that would say next discussion or previous discussion, and typically it will actually put the title of the discussion next to the arrow so that they know the name of the discussion that they're going to. I think one of the most exciting new forum features is going to be the ability now to subscribe to individual discussions. So let me show you how that looks. We're going to go into a demo course that we have on a 2.8 site. I'm going to go down to a forum area, and we'll just go down to this standard forum for general use. Whoops, let's go to one that actually has some topics. Well, I thought that one did. Let's see. Okay, well, we will add a topic then. So basically what's going to end up happening is now every topic that is added out to the side of each topic, when it's listed in the forum, you'll now see a little envelope icon, and all users will see this. So previously, you could subscribe to a forum, and if you subscribe to a forum, you subscribe to the forum as a whole. So if anyone posted any new topics to that forum, you were receiving notifications, typically through the Moodle messaging system, and often those would be forwarded to your email account that you had on file. If you had a really large forum that might have a diverse set of topics on it, you might not necessarily be interested in all of those discussions. So now you have the ability to click the icon in order to subscribe to that specific thread within the forum. And then if you find yourself subscribed to something perhaps you're no longer interested in, you can come back in and you can click the button and it will unsubscribe you. And actually, I think I said that backwards. If you see the envelope, you are already subscribed, excuse me. And if you see the dot, you are not subscribed. So it's a very quick way for users to customize what types of information are coming to them through the forums. Because we all know if people are receiving messages about too much course material that may not apply directly to them, they tend to stop reading the messages altogether, and then they miss something that is important to them. So this is going to help them kind of weed out what they consider miscellaneous. The other nice thing is once you are subscribed to those forum posts, when you have them sent to your email, whether it be through the email digest where you get a list that has all of the forums you're subscribed to all at once, or if you have them sent individually to you as soon as someone posts, right? Doesn't matter what format those notifications come to you in. Once you receive those notifications through your email, you actually now have the ability to reply to the actual post directly through your email. So formerly, you could reply through the email, but what it did was it sent a message to whomever had posted the message to begin with. It never actually put your reply in the forum itself. Now you can reply via email, and it will post your reply in the forum. So your users don't actually have to even log into the course to continue to participate in these group discussions that you're trying to build. Now those are the biggies that are going to affect everyone and how they interact with different elements of the site. So now we're going to switch over and we're going to focus on what is new for teachers, and this is specifically going to look at course build tools as well as course management tools. So the first one, and I know this is one that everyone is either really excited about or really nervous about, that's going to be your Gradebook improvements. The Gradebook in 2.8 received pretty much a complete makeover. So it looks similar, but it is just different enough, I think, to make people slightly uncomfortable when they first look at it. I think you're going to be happy with the changes that are in the Gradebook because it's going to give you a lot more flexibility, and I think it's a little bit easier to get information out of it for both students and teachers. We're actually going to be spending an entire session talking specifically about the Gradebook. So we're not going to go into a whole lot of detail today because there were so many changes that would take our whole 45 minutes. So I'm just going to kind of go through the highlights and let you take a peek at it, but July is when we'll be going through all of the Gradebook specifically. So the first thing in the Gradebook that changed is that you now have what is called a Gradebook setup screen. So I'm going to go back over to my course, and I'm going to go into my course administration block, and I'm going to click on grades. So you still get to it the same way you used to. But you might notice I have tabs showing here, and I do not have anything that says categories and items. So if any of you were used to working in the categories and items screen, it's kind of moved. It's in what is now called the setup screen. So when I open up the setup screen, that's when I get to my categories and items screen. And you might notice that it is a condensed view. They've done this to, I think, help prevent inadvertent changes to specific items. You used to be able to type straight into this categories and items, and you could check extra credit and do all this other stuff, and occasionally things would be done in error and unintentionally. So they've made it a little harder. You really have to mean what you're going to do because you have to go in and edit settings in order to make a lot of the changes that used to be available on that screen. Also in that setup area, they're going to have where you can change the settings, the way your Gradebook appears to your users, as well as your preferences as to how the Gradebook appears to you. So that little setup screen is probably where you're going to spend quite a bit of your time in the Gradebook. That would probably come second only to how much time you spend in the grader report. They've made several improvements to the grader report. I think one of the ones that most people are really excited about is the scrolling feature. I hope this is showing up for you via the webinar platform, but it's going to scroll better on any device that you might use. So if you have a touch-capable device, that used to cause some problems occasionally with the scrolling, and the scrolling is much more efficient now. It also has what it calls a quick edit mode, so when you type some changes into the grader report, they're going to be saved automatically. It's kind of nice. You also have a new grade history. It's going to allow you to go through and look at any changes that have been made to a grade for a specific assignment and who made them. So let you track if anything has gone back in, anyone has gone back in and regraded or adjusted a grade. I know many people are excited because now you have the ability to import grades from a spreadsheet, and when I say that, a lot of people are like, well, you could always import grades from a spreadsheet, but now you can actually just copy and paste straight from the spreadsheet. You don't actually have to have a CSV file that you upload. And then the one that I think is making many people nervous is this new, what they call natural aggregation method. If you were a teacher who ever used the sum of points aggregation method, then natural is kind of taking the place of sum of points, but it does have some additional options that go with it so that you can actually weight grades. Even though you're summing points, you can still assign weights. The overall goal is that eventually the natural aggregation method, because it has so many options, it's going to be able to replace a lot of the different methods, so people won't have to worry so much about what method they've chosen. They could choose one method and then just set the options in it, and it would function the way they want to. But we'll take a closer look at all of these and actually demo all of these for you in July's webinar. But lots of changes to the Gradebook, so just kind of prepare yourself, but don't be afraid. I think you're going to like it in the end. We also have some new additions to access restrictions. So if you have used access restrictions to control the availability of course materials within your courses, then you will probably be a little bit excited about this. Now in 2.7, they added the new interface, which I think is much cleaner and much easier for users to come in and say, I want to restrict based upon any of these criterion. But starting in 2.8, they have now added groups and grouping to the normal access restriction area. So if you were used to using an older version of Moodle and you used groups in your course and you had an assignment that you only wanted a specific group of students to be able to access, previously you had to put that group into a grouping. You had to go into your settings for that assignment and check the Enable Group Members Only box, and then you would choose the grouping that you had put the group in. And so there was a lot involved. Now, it's very nice. I go into my course. I can go into any assignment or resource. It doesn't have to be an assignment. It can be any activity or resource. So maybe I want to restrict access to this document. I can go into the settings, and in the regular restrict access area, I click add a restriction, and I can choose to restrict based on group membership, and I just choose the group that they're in. I also have the ability to say they have to be in that group, or I can exclude a single group, so everyone else in the course except members of this group would be able to see that. I can also add a restriction by groupings, so if you're using groupings of groups in your course, you can also choose a specific grouping, and they have to be in a group that's in that grouping in order to be able to access it, or you can prevent members from accessing that way. So the group and grouping restrictions are all under the regular restrict access now. It's not a separate area that you have to go to. A little more straightforward. Ooh, and we skipped a slide, so sorry. For those of you that use quizzes, very popular module in education, you will notice that there is an improved quiz editing screen. And the best way for me to explain this to you is to actually just show it to you. So we're going to go into a quiz. And I'm going to go into the Edit Quiz area. And you can see this is very different from what we have had in previous versions of Moodle. So, oh, excuse me one second. This quiz is open, so it's not going to let me show you all of the editing features. Let's go find a quiz that has not had any attempts. Whoop, wrong one. Okay. So here we are. This one is open also. Let me clear out attempts and see if it will let me change it. I apologize. We have multiple people that use this demo site, so I never know when somebody's going in to test something. So here we are on the editing screen, and now you can see all of the options. You have the ability to drag and drop in order to reorder questions, which is nice because in the past you had to click on the little up and down arrows and you had to move questions one space at a time in order to reorganize them, but now you can drag and drop them to reorder them. You also have the new add button over here, so in between areas you have add buttons where you can click to add a new question if you're going to create one from scratch. You can add from the question bank, which will allow you to pull a specific question directly from the question bank, or you can add a random question, which will let you decide what category you would like to pull a random question from your question bank into the quiz. So that's where you go to add a question. When you do click to add a question, you do get the same question wizard that pops up if you're adding a new one so that you can pick what time and what kind of question, excuse me, and that has not changed at all. So if you go in to add a multiple choice question, that's going to look the same that it's always looked. No changes there, so don't worry about anything like that. It's really just the editing the quiz layout that's changed. You also have a repaginate button that shows up in the corner, so you can decide how many questions per page you would like, and it will reorder your quiz accordingly. But then over to the left, you have a page break icon. So once you have repaginated, if you decide that you have some areas where maybe I don't need 3 questions, I want this specific question on its own page, then you can actually just click this button and it will add a break, or maybe you want to put more than 3 so you can remove a page break as well. Okay, so just a little tweaking going on to make that quiz a little bit easier to change the layout of. There are also some new activity completion options for quizzing, and these are wonderful. You wonder sometimes why it took so long to get some of this stuff. When it shows up, you're like, why didn't we have that the whole time? So in your settings for your quiz, if you are monitoring completion, now see, this is what happens when I change courses. When you're monitoring completion, you used to only be able to say if the student received a grade, it would be considered complete, or if they had made an attempt, it would be considered complete. But now you're going to have some new options. You can have it automatically marked as complete, and you can require that they receive a passing grade, and or you can require that they have used all possible attempts. So if you have a quiz set up that allows a user to try 3 times, and it's going to take the highest grade, or it's going to take the average of the grades, then you could tell it, okay, well, after they've used all 3 attempts, even if they're not passing, that's the end, that's considered complete. Or the minute they receive a passing grade, then they are considered complete. Now, to set that passing grade, you do in 2.8 still have to go into your gradebook. I'm not sure if any of you have been familiar with this before, but you can go into the gradebook. You go under Setup to your Categories and Items screen, and this is very similar from this point on to how you used to set passing grades previously. You go into the item and you edit the settings, and right here under the grade item, you have to click Show More, but it will bring up a grade to pass, and that's where you establish what is considered a passing grade for that specific activity. And that's true for any activity, not just quizzes. Quizzes are just the only one at the moment that the passing grade can be required in order for that activity to be checked off as complete. Okay, but you don't set that passing grade setting in the settings for the quiz itself. You have to actually go back into the gradebook to set that. Now, there were some small changes that were made to other various modules. If you've ever used the choice module, where you propose one question to your students and they answer that question. A lot of teachers use that for polling because you have the ability to publish those answers if you like. They may use it for scheduling meetings. They might use it for users selecting a group assignment, something like that. Previously, with a choice question, you could ask one question and the students could only make one choice for that question. Now, you still are only asking one single question, but you can give your students the option to choose more than one of the possible answers. So if you want to tell them to choose their top 2 or something like that, then you have the ability to do that as well. In the assignment modules, and this is what you see a picture of over here, you now have the option to add what they're calling additional files. These are attachments that you can add to an assignment. Let me show you kind of how this shows up for users. So here is a sample assignment. I'm going to go into the settings. So perhaps you would type your instructions right here in the description field for your students. Now you have the option of adding what they're calling these additional files. So I'm going to go find a file very quickly that I can add in there. We're just going to take this one. Okay. And I'm going to save my changes, and I'm going to show you what this looks like. So now when they go in as a student, when they click on that assignment from the main course page and it opens up and it shows them their instructions, any files you have added to that additional files area will show up below your description. Okay, so think about this as a great place to put things like perhaps a template. I know a lot of teachers would like students to maybe complete a table, and that's part of an assignment is filling out a table, and it's always kind of been a problem in the past. Okay, well, how do I get all their tables to look alike? I have certain elements that I want them to make sure they include. Well, you could upload perhaps a Word document that is actually the table, the grid for them. Your students then can download the file from this area, make the changes on their computer, and then upload it in that assignment as their submission. Another great use for this would be if you had examples of what is considered a good submission and even possibly a bad submission for this specific assignment. So kind of this is what you should do and this is what you should not do, samples. Sometimes that can really help clarify in your student's mind what the expectations are for that particular activity. So this is a great place for you to upload something like some example submissions. And then also, if you are a instructor who uses the lesson module, and specifically if you are someone who has created question pages within your lesson modules, you'll probably be happy to find out that you now have the ability, if you are adding a multiple choice question to a lesson and you want to have images in your multiple choice question and specifically in your answer choices, you now have the ability to use the file picker to add images. This used to be a huge problem. I'm speaking from personal experience when we were developing training on Moodle itself, and we would have a lesson and we would have a multiple choice question that would have icons in it, and we wanted people to pick the correct icon for whatever function it was they were trying to complete. You would actually have to upload those pictures to some other website or some other area of a course, and then you would just have to provide the URL for those images in order to get it to display. Right? Now you actually can go into the file picker and you can upload those images directly in the lesson page itself, so they are completely attached to it. Okay, and I have a question that just came in. Someone was asking if I could review how to add the additional files. This is for the assignment. Let me go back and just review that very quickly. So whether I can just start from scratch, we'll start from a new assignment. So I'm going to add an activity, and I'm going to choose assignment. I'm going to click add. So this is my assignment, with files. So in the description area of an assignment, this is typically where you would type your instructions to your students about what's expected of them, right? Right? Okay. Now, underneath that description field, you have a new area right here called additional files. And you can take those files straight from your computer. If you have them on your computer, you can drag and drop them, or you can use the file picker, and you can either upload it, or I have a file in another area of the course I want to add, so I'm just going to add this PDF. So you just use the file picker like you normally would. If you wanted to pull it from your computer, you could go upload, and you could choose, and you could go into your documents and add it that way. Okay, and you can put as many files as you would like them to have. Then you just go down to the bottom and you can save and return to course. What's going to happen from then is that when your students are in the course and they see this assignment, when they click on it, it's going to display your instructions that you typed in the description, and then the files that you uploaded will appear right underneath it, and they are hyperlinked, so they are available for them to either, depending on what type of file it is, if it's a PDF, a lot of times it will open it directly in the browser, or it can download it directly to their computer. It kind of depends on the settings on their individual machine. If it's a Word doc, typically it's going to download it to their computer because most browsers don't have the capability to open Word docs right inside of them. Okay? Okay. So that's adding those, again, adding those attachment files to assignments. That's for the teachers, not for the students, right? Okay. And then file picker, you can add images to your multiple choice questions in a lesson by uploading them straight into that question page instead of having to have them somewhere else in your course and linking to them. Now, we do have a few features that are going to help you manage your courses a little better. One of the more interesting things, and I'm really kind of interested to see where this goes in future versions as well, but 2.8 is the first time we saw this. This is called event monitoring. So initially it has to be enabled by your site administrator. So if you don't see event monitoring in your profile settings menu, then talk to your site administrator. So they have to enable it. And if you're a site admin and you're here with us today, you do that under Reports Event Monitoring Rules, and there's a little button to enable it for your site. So what happens once it's enabled is that you can create what they call rules, and they can be created by administrators, managers, or teachers. Students cannot create event monitoring rules. Okay? Now, depending on who creates those rules, they could be available site-wide, or a teacher might create a rule that is specific to their individual course. Okay? So depending on who creates it, it might be something that anyone could use, or it's something that only you can use in your classes. What happens in those rules is that you pick an activity, and by activity, I mean an activity in general. So you pick assignments. You pick quizzes, you pick forums. You don't pick a specific assignment when you're doing an event monitoring rule. You have to pick an activity in general. And you tell Moodle, basically, I want you to notify me if a specific action, such as a student posts a new discussion thread, happens in a forum. Okay? And you get to tell Moodle how many times that has to happen before it sends you a notification. So if you are a teacher, which most of you should be teaching your specific classes, if you are in one of your courses, you can go under the reports area to event monitoring rules. And then you can click add a new rule. You can title your rule, so this is, okay. You choose what area you want to monitor, so this is like the activity or resource that you want to monitor, so I'm going to choose forum. And then you choose your event, and these are all of the events that Moodle is tracking and logging that are related to forums. Okay, so basically what this is doing is it is taking what Moodle already logs, and they are emailing you for certain activity that you're requesting notification about. So let's say if someone deletes a discussion, I want to be notified. Okay, and you tell them, what is your notification threshold? Well, the minute one of them gets deleted, I want to know. Or if it happens 5 times, I want to know. So you choose how many times that event has to happen, and then you tell it in what time frame. So what that means is, okay, if 5 forum posts are deleted within a 20-minute period, that's some unusual activity I might want to know about. And then you can just have it send you a notification message. Now, right now, the default just tells you the name of the rule, what the description is for the rule, and the event name for the rule. So it's basically taking what you filled in and it's putting it in an email. You can customize this message if you like. So then you would save changes, and from now on in this specific course that I'm in, if discussions are deleted 5 times in 20 minutes, Moodle is going to send me a message. So this is a great way to monitor unusual activity, or if you're looking for specific activity, like I want to know when people are submitting assignments. If 5 people have submitted an assignment, I want it to be sent to me, something like that. Okay, so it's just a way, again, to have Moodle send the information to the user instead of the user having to go into Moodle to get the information. I think this is something that will probably grow in future versions of Moodle also. I think the capabilities, there are a lot of capabilities there. You can actually choose whether or not you want to have those messages emailed to you, or if you are using one of the Moodle mobile apps, then if push notifications are enabled at the site level, you'll actually have the option to have those notifications pushed to your mobile device that have the Moodle mobile app loaded on them. So you can choose how you want to receive those. Now, this was really designed for admins and teachers more than anyone, but you can actually go in and at the site level or within a course, you could go in and you could give your student the right to subscribe to specific event rules. You probably don't want to give them the rights to create event monitoring rules, because those show up for everyone in the course that can subscribe. So maybe limit it to the teachers or the site administrator make the rules, but if you want, you can change permissions for that student role and allow those students to subscribe to them. If any of you have ever created a course backup, you might be excited to know that you now have this new button that says jump to the final step. So there typically are several screens that you have to go through to make a backup, and the majority of us might adjust something on the first screen, but then the rest of the screens, they're really just verification screens, and we don't typically make any changes. So if you want to avoid having to click 3 or 4 extra times, you now can set your initial settings and click jump to the final step, and Moodle will begin making the backup immediately without you having to click next through 2 or 3 more screens. It's just going to use whatever default settings are put in there. Now, there are a couple of things that have happened for site administrators. There are only 3 or 4 I'm going to show y'all. So just to make you aware, even if you're not a site administrator, it's kind of nice to know what they have the ability to do, because sometimes you might need them to find out some information. So, for example, they have the events list. Now, this is where Moodle is logging all of the activity that's going on this site. So if you need information about a student's participation on your Moodle site as a whole, it might be nice for your site administrators to know that they now have this events list. The events list was actually released in 2.7, but they have upgraded it in 2.8 to create more detailed logging. And one of the biggest things they've done, because they have revamped the gradebook, there are actually more logging actions being tracked related to grades. So there's going to be more information. Cohorts, if y'all are using cohorts at your campuses, these are created typically at the system level. So a site administrator would have to create them. You can now actually upload cohorts. There's a little link to upload them via CSV file. That's new, and that's done through the cohort screen in the site administration menu. As a site administrator, you can view all of the cohorts on the entire site in one screen. That used to be a little more difficult. You used to have to go into the category. If a cohort was created in a specific category, you would have to go into that category to see the cohorts, but now you can see all of the cohorts available on the entire system on one screen. And you also have the ability to decide whether or not cohorts are visible or not to teachers. So you could actually have a cohort that you as a site admin are going to use only, or if there is a cohort of students and teachers need to be able to enroll that cohort into their courses, then you could check that you wanted that cohort to be visible, and then it would be available for teachers to use when they are logging in. Someone just asked us the question, would it be possible to get a copy? Oh, yeah, just wanted to make sure everybody knew. There will be a link to this recording that will be sent out, so don't worry if you think you've missed something. You can back up and rewind and listen to me as many times as you like, or you can just mute me and watch the slides, right? And then we also have, and this is actually my last bit here, and then we'll be open for any questions you might have, a couple of changes to language packs. So if you are using multiple language packs on your site, not sure exactly what you might have on your site. I know a lot of people, especially in educational settings, if you're teaching something like foreign language classes, or if you have an international contingency of students, you might have loaded some different language packs on there so that they can be used by people who want to change the language that all of the menus in Moodle appear in, right? Changes all the language for what is part of Moodle, not translating what's in your course. It doesn't do that, right? Previously, what would happen is when you loaded a language pack, you would get the version of that language pack at that moment, and those language packs are always being tweaked and improved, and more buttons are being translated. So you would have to manually go back in and update your language packs. Now that is actually a scheduled task, shows up on the scheduled tasks screen in your site administration menu, and it is run as part of a cron job, so it will automatically go out. It'll look at all of the language packs you have installed. It will automatically go out and pull down any updates for them and apply them to your site. So really nice to make sure that you have the most recent and most up-to-date versions of the languages. Okay. Now, we are going to open it up for questions. We have about 11 minutes left for questions, but if I don't answer your question, or if you think of something later, I want to make sure y'all have this web address, and I'll actually, let me put this in the chat so everyone can link to it. This is the Moodle doc that shows all of the new features in 2.8, and they actually, let's see if I can get it to pull up. Here we go. There are a couple of things on this page. Number one, they've got a great little table of contents. You can go through and they'll have some little screenshots. Click on any of these and they'll give you more information about that specific element. The other thing that I like, if you want more detail, so you can get as much or as little as you want, if you want more detail, you can go to the release notes. They'll actually go through and give you links to the tracker tickets for every update that they did so that you can see why the change was made and how they went about making the change, and if there are any recommendations that after the change for future improvements. So if you're really curious, you can always go through and look at that. But what I gave you a link to was this one, which is a great little quick overview that you might want to just kind of keep handy. So I have some questions coming in. If you have any questions, please feel free to type them in the question area and we'll get to them. Let's see, I have Amy is asking me, the new drop-down menu for users allows you to post links. Are they role-based, meaning that faculty could see different links than students? Those are not role-based. They're not designed to be role-based, so basically if you put a link there, it is going to show up for everyone. But if you put a link to something that students do not have access to, if they clicked on it, it would bring up an error screen for them. It would, deny them access. So that could get confusing. So I don't think I would necessarily use that. If you had something, if you had a series of links that you only wanted to be visible to faculty members, I think you'd be better off doing some type of block rather than the user's menu. You might create a faculty block that you could then make hidden, and faculty members can see hidden objects, right? If they have teaching rights, they'd be able to see hidden objects. How does the forum response by email affect logs? What's going to happen is when that response is emailed back to Moodle and it is posted to the forum, it will show up in the forum just as a post. And it will tell you the IP address that it comes from, and the IP address, I believe, will come through as the mail server, if I remember correctly. But it's not going to come out to the side and say posted by email. It'll just say replied or posted or whatever. So it really won't look very different, but the IP address might be a little off from where they actually are. Do we have any other questions? Do I have, oh, there's another one. Do you have to have a password for accommodating students on quizzes, tests, exams, or assignments? By accommodating, I am guessing you mean if you have students that have to have maybe a different version of the quiz, perhaps extended time on a quiz, something like that. Okay, so you're talking about accessibility or providing accommodations for their what we used to call in public education as IEPs, individual education plans, right? So if you have students that for whatever reason need extended time, need maybe fewer answer choices, something like that, you actually in 2.8 would have to create a separate assignment. Okay, so you can, though, take the original assignment you have. So let's say I have my quiz, my infamous quiz that someone had taken. I can go under Edit and I can duplicate that quiz. And it's going to take my site just a minute. But when it pulls up the second copy, there we go, of that quiz, you can go in and edit the settings, and let's say I want to provide extended time, right? So I could come in, and if this one, they have 120 minutes instead of whatever the first one had. So I would have to make a separate version. But this is where those new access restrictions based on group or grouping come in handy. Because if I have my students that require extended time in a group, then I can restrict access to this quiz based on group membership. So let's say that they are group A. And if I click the little eye icon out to the side, that means that that restriction is going to be hidden and that activity will be invisible to everyone who is not in group A. So then I would save it and return to my course. Now, if I didn't really want my students to be really cognizant that they had a different quiz, then I could actually go into my original one and I could restrict access based on grouping, and I could say that in order to see this, your students must not be in group A. So now group A has one that they see, and everyone else has the other one. And the two groups of students don't see one another's work. So that's still how you're going to have to go about doing that. You're going to have to go in and put them in a separate group. You cannot do an override per students in the quiz ahead of time. Now you could go back in and you could delete a student's attempt. If they need to reattempt, you could go in and do that. But you can't go in and do an override per student in the quiz. Now, it's not available in 2.8. I have a feeling that it's going to be in Moodle in the very near future, because they just released 2.9 in May, and one of the things they did in 2.9 was in the lesson module, you actually could put in overrides for specific users or for specific groups of users. They have a completely separate screen for overrides. They have only done that on the lesson module so far, and that's in 2.9. So I have a feeling once we get into the 3s, I don't know about 3.0, maybe 3.1, 3.2, somewhere in there. I think if that is as popular in the lesson module as I believe it is, you're going to start seeing those override capabilities in many of the graded activities in particular. Okay, but that is not currently available. And I'm hoping that answered a couple of the questions about how that's different from group overrides. It's really not different from group overrides. You're creating a separate activity. The overrides aren't available just in general. The group overrides are available in the lesson for 2.91. Okay, and I had someone else asking about that. Does that hide the separate quizzes to the groups in the gradebook? Yes, in the gradebook they would only be able to see the activities that they were had rights to see on the main course page. So if something's hidden from them, it won't show up in their gradebook either. Oh, and someone's correcting me. Yes, you can do user overrides. You do it all the time. Interesting. Kathy, I'm going to do you have a microphone, Kathy? Because I will happily give you presenter rights so you can explain. Okay, let me give you presenter rights. So y'all probably aren't going to see my screen now. But Kathy, can you tell us? And I'll look and see if I can find it, and then I could show it for them because I am not aware of that.
Hello?
Yes, ma'am.
Oh, okay. So when you have a quiz and you go to the administration block, there's options to do an override for a user and do an override for a group.
You know what? I do see that now. I do see that. And you know what? I did not know that. Let me share my screen with them very quickly. And
also, just so you know, you can also do exceptions for the assignment. So you can extend a due date for just one student.
Okay, so let me show them where that is. So it is similar to what they had in the lesson, and I apologize. I had not used that before.
Don't
and well, when y'all are in there, please tell me if you know that I'm wrong about something. When y'all are in there and like two people are like, yes, you can, and I'm like, really? How do you do that? Okay, so let me show y'all what she's talking about for those of you that don't know what Kathy's talking about. This is what they just added to lesson in 2.9, so I'm behind the curve on this, and I apologize. In the quiz administration, here's where you see overrides for group overrides and user overrides. So if you click user overrides, you click add a user override, you can choose what specific student you want. You can choose if you want to require a password for that student, but that is requiring a password for them to access it. I don't know why you would want to necessarily require a password for one student and not others, but okay. But here's what she's talking about. Here you can extend the time, so it will show you what the settings are for the quiz as a whole, and you can go in and make any changes that you want for that student. You can change the number of attempts, all of those, and then you can save. Whoops, I meant to just save so you could see. So then when you go in to the list, it will show you the student and what overrides you have in place for them. Okay? And then you do have group overrides right here also where you can add a group override. So if you have them in a group, you could give everyone in Group A that amount of time. So now you're not having to make the duplicate activity anymore. And I'm going back through my versions when I get off this call to figure out where they started doing that because I totally missed that. Thank y'all very much. I appreciate it. Okay, let's see. What else do we have? With event monitors, can you set them for a specific user or role? Can you set an event monitor for a lack of action? No, that I know for a fact is not possible yet in the event monitor. So you can't say I want to monitor, you know, Susie Q and I want to know when she turns in her assignment. Or you can't say I want a notification when someone has received a failing grade on a quiz. It's not quite that specific yet. But again, this is something that I mentioned earlier. This was new in 2.8, so I have a feeling that as we get into future versions of Moodle, that they will begin adding more options, because I know as soon as that came out, that was a very popular question. Can I set it to monitor to send me a notification if an assignment due date passes and I want a list of all of the kids who haven't turned it in yet? That's not possible yet. So let's see. Someone asked if they could ask a question out loud. If you have a microphone, it's going to hide my screen, but I can, oh, actually, you know what? I may be able just to give you audio rights. Let's see, Diana, if I can find you. So, Diana, if you have a microphone, I am working to see if I can give you rights. It says you have to enter a PIN, an audio PIN. It doesn't show you have a microphone. It shows that you're using a telephone that you called in, and it says you have to enter the PIN. So I guess either you can type it or you can enter the PIN, and once it's entered, it will let me do it.
Shelley, in the meantime, I think Mike Clendenin has a question about does this hide the separate quizzes to the groups in the gradebook?
Yes, I actually, I thought I answered that just a moment ago, but yes, it does. If something is hidden, now not overrides, obviously, but if you do the thing where you have a completely separate quiz for users, then that will hide those grades, or it will hide the other quiz from all users in the gradebook. So they'll only see the one that's in their gradebook. And the separate quiz, you're going to need to use that if you're going to actually edit the quiz in any way. So to do the overrides only allows you to override how the quiz functions, and as far as the due date, the time limit, how many attempts they can have. But if you actually need to have different questions for different students or fewer answer choices for students, you would have to create the separate quiz the way that I showed you a little bit ago. Okay, and I haven't received any word back from Diana. I don't know if you're typing or not. I will wait for a few minutes. I know it's a little after 11, so I don't want to keep any of you any longer. I know you have many, many things to do. But if you do have any questions, you will be receiving. Yeah.
Go ahead, Shelley.
Oh, I was going to say, you will be receiving, as I mentioned earlier, an email following this that will have a link to the recording of the webinar. So if you have any questions about anything that come up later when you're reviewing it, or you've had time to think or something like that, please feel free to reach out to us. Happy to help.
And I was going to follow up, say the same thing, and just thank everyone for taking their time today to come to this. I hope you found it useful and learned a lot. And again, as Shelley had mentioned, we are going to be covering the Moodle Gradebook for 2.8 on our next webinar, which will be the last Thursday of July, July 30th. We are going to be doing these the last Thursday of every month. So we look forward to seeing you then. And in the meantime, if you have any questions, please feel free to reach out and ask us any questions at any time. So thank you very much.
Y'all have a good day.